G'day guys, welcome back to this week's Fishing Report where we dive into what's been biting around Sydney and I share with you where to go fishing this weekend and a few secret spots. So stick around to the end and you'll find out where you might be heading this weekend for a fish. So in review of the last week, we've got some really nice kingfish being caught again in Botany Bay and Port Hacking, particularly the Port Hacking. And over the next week, we should see that increase because of the run-in tide that we will talk about in just a second. But kingfish in the Port Hacking around Lilipilly, Southwest Arm, Burraneer Bay, the three drop-offs there have been producing some really nice kingfish on live baits. Less on plastics this week, more on live baits, particularly yellowtail and a few squid. If you can head out off Salmon Hall and Oak Park and quickly grab yourself 5 or 6 squid, or out to Middle Grounds and grab some live yellowtail, head back into the river, should be in with some really nice action on kingfish. Again, I said this a couple months ago, the rats will start to come in soon and be hard to get your live baits past them. So being able to sort of have a fish now while there's still some really nice kings around before the rats really start taking over our systems is going to be a key. Moving on into the Flathead, and a few people went out fishing in Botany Bay over the weekend and absolutely slayed on the Flathead, particularly on soft plastics. Again, the report last week I was talking about the run-in tide in the morning, and the Flathead were on the chew in the morning hard in Botany Bay. Around Towra, Yarra Bay, all those sorts of sand flats have been producing some nice Flathead over the last week on soft plastics as well. Fish in that 40 to 50 centimetre range, perfect eating size and perfect to be able to target on soft plastics. Another fish that I don't mention a lot that has also been biting quite strong is our tailor. Our tailor have been hanging around the kingfish and the salmon schools. So looking for the birds and watching for where they're working on the surface, have been producing some nice tailor. Tailor in excess of 50 centimetres, which is a rock solid nice tailor here in Sydney. Using deep diving hard bodies and trolling them around has been producing some really nice tailor in the bay. Or if you want to have a bit more fun, getting a Daiwa slippery dog out, working it along the surface around those birds, and the bait balls have been producing some nice tailor. Again, if you're going to target tailor, I would have a heavier leader, probably 15 pound would probably be the max I would go to, but the minimum I would go is 10 pounds. So just in case you might get snipped off, just to protect yourself from losing those Daiwa slippery dogs. Okay, let's get straight into where we should be heading out this weekend, and let's look at Saturday first of all. So Saturday morning, we've got a southerly pushing all around to an east nor'easter in the afternoon. It's going to have some nice settled wind conditions, so winds less than 20 kilometers an hour. What we're going to be looking at is that morning high tide. So we've got a high tide at about 9:30 in the morning. The low tide is about 3:30 a.m. and the high tide about 9:30. So we're going to have a running tide around that sunrise in the morning. And over the last couple of weeks, I've explained that the running tide is the perfect tide to be able to target your salmon and particularly your kingfish. They will bite quite aggressively on that tide. Another good thing is we are at a new moon phase at the moment. So there's going to be a lot of prawns about and a lot of action in regards to that. So maybe downsizing your lures if you're going to be targeting kingfish. I'd be using smaller style soft plastics to be able to target them with thicker gauge jig heads. So small style, but thicker gauge to be able to, if you do hook onto a decent one, you should be able to not bend hooks or anything like that. So plan in regards to Saturday for me, running tide, targeting the kingfish. I'm going to target them on plastics rather than live bait and stuff like that. Mainly because I can't go out offshore. It's a 1.7 meter swell. It's going to be too hard for me to go out, get a live bait out offshore or a squid or something like that. Again, if you are in Botany Bay, you could always go to the live bait grounds around the runways there and get a few yellowtail and all that sort of stuff. But for me, I really enjoy targeting them on lures. So I'm going to be using things like the Daiwa Wave Minnow, Daiwa Flick, the Daiwa Slippery Dog as well. Should be a bit of fun. Nice and early in the morning, use the surface lures, see if we can't get a nice surface bite on a kingfish or a salmon in the morning. I'm going to be going into the Port Hacking, using Lilipilly, Southwest Arm, and then pushing up into Burraneer Bay. So start in the lower end of the hacking and then head out towards the heads as the day goes on, all the way up to the top end of the tide. Now, once that tide turns and starts running out, heading up onto the flats, targeting big flathead and whiting. On surface lures, Daiwa Slippery Dog, Anamite Colour, can't beat it on the Port Hacking. There's some absolutely massive whiting and some big flathead out on the sand flats at the moment. And that 10 a.m. high tide, it's going to be hard to be able to entice a bite because the sun will be up nice and high. and they're going to be very wary of noise and stuff like that. So if you can be as secretive and as quiet as possible, you should be able to get some nice whiting, because the water has heated up significantly during that day, and about 11 o'clock the water's going to be nice and heated up. They're going to be more active because they're out on those flats. The sun's been heating up that water as well. So that's my plan for Saturday. Early morning, kingfish, salmon, top water, 7, 8 o'clock, start switching over to soft plastics, working that mid to lower half of the water column, seeing if we can get a few. If that's not your style, go get a few live baits, troll them around Botany Bay, Port Hacking. So Botany Bay, runways, Yarra Bay, Watts Reef, really, really good. Bridges have started to produce some nice kingfish as well. So if all those 3 spots, your backup spot would probably be the Captain Cook Bridge there as well. Port Hacking, Lilipilli, Southwest Arm, Botany Bay, and the heads of the Port Hacking have been producing some nice kingfish. So if you head out around those areas, should be able to find some nice fish. Moving on into Sunday, and Sunday is looking okay. Now I say that in regards to the weather. Now please make sure you are checking the weather before you go out at any time. The things that I'm saying here are predictions for what is going to be happening in the coming days. Sunday looks like a variable northerly breeze. The reason why I'm a bit worried about it is because the 2 wind models that I have on my weather app right now is showing either 38 kilometers an hour or 20 to 25 kilometers an hour. Now, obviously that wind condition is still way too high to be able for me to be able to go out and have a fish. But if we are going to, and I might still go out and have a fish, obviously I'm going to check the weather in the morning and see what's what. If the weather is what's predicted, 30 plus kilometer an hour northerly breeze, what I'm going to be doing is probably stay in a little bit, wait for the top end of that running tide, and then go target some fish on the flat. So some whiting and flathead on those shallow sand flats, because the wind is up. If you can find a nice protected spot, it will still be breezy enough to be able to provide that little ripple on the surface that can add a bit of extra stealth for you to be able to head out. And like I said, on Saturday, you're gonna have to be really stealthy on Saturday because the wind is not there. It's gonna be glassy along those flats. But on Sunday, because we've got that nice northerly breeze, it's gonna protect that sort of glass off conditions, and the fish are going to be less wary of a boat coming through using their electric motor or drifting through those flats. Biggest key, number 1 tip for you guys for fishing those shallow sand flats for either your whiting or your flathead is stop at about 100-150 meters away. Then use your electric motor and push slowly into that flat. Make sure you have everything ready. Your lures, rods rigged up, you've got a spare rod rigged, ready to go. All that sort of stuff is ready to go, because if you go onto that sand flat and you spook those fish, it's game over for about half an hour. They're not going to come back or want to be on the chew near that boat at all. So Sunday, places like the flats of Southwest Arm, Northwest Arm, and Main Bar are going to be the 3 that I would be targeting in the Port Hacking. Again, around that 10 o'clock. I'm probably going to head out at about 8 o'clock. Head up and do that running tide, and then finish at about midday, which is the last 2 hours of that run out tide, and just purely target some fish on those flats. If you're heading out on Botany Bay and you want to do the same thing, Tower is a really good spot for that. All the way along Brightler Sands as well is a really nice spot to be able to do that. If you're heading further up in the system, the Georges River there, on the western side of Como Bridge, there's a nice sand flat there, and if you wind your way up through the Warrenora River, there's some really nice sand flats there that I would predict that there would be some extra oversized whiting there as well. So if you really want to be protected out of the wind and you want to fish Botany Bay, I'd stick away from the bay. I'd be going to areas like Como and the Warrenora River with my surface walkers. You never know what you can get. Bream, whiting, flathead, estuary perch would all be out there chasing some fish on the flats. Now, quickly before we leave, we want to talk about 2 of our supporters here at Reel Fishing. The first one is Seven Seas Apparel. Seven Seas Apparel have been with Reel Fishing for many years now. They're a great family-owned business, and they produce some really high-quality apparel. Quality apparel that's lasted me years and years and years, and I've worn them out fishing. I've dunked them in the salt water, washed them hundreds of times, and they are just durable and they'll last forever. So, use code REELFISHING10, that's REEL Fishing 10, to save yourself 10% off anything Seven Seas Apparel. Their new range is just about to launch. They've launched one of their singlets already, and there is going to be more clothes coming out throughout the summer. So make sure you're prepared and ready to buy them before they sell out really quickly. The second company I'd like to thank is Salty Captain. Salty Captain has just recently joined the Reel Fishing crew, and they've got a special offer for you guys on anything Salty Captain. If you use code REELFISHING15, you'll save yourself 15% off anything Salty Captain. Now, I've used Salty Captain for years, and it's saved my boat, and particularly my engine, thousands of dollars in maintenance fees. Using the engine flush system has produced a lot more longevity and a lot more reliability out of my Yamaha engine. Along with their salt wash along the boat, it makes it so much easier. I can get off the water, wash my boat, flush my engine, all inside 5 minutes, quickly strap up my boat, and I'm off the water and heading back home. That means more fishing time on the water, less time at the ramp cleaning the boat, and more time out having fun. So code REELFISHING15 for Salty Captain to save yourself 15% off, and code REELFISHING10 at Seven Seas Apparel to save yourself 10% off anything in their apparel range. And don't forget to always like and subscribe. We're on our way to 2,000 subs. It would be great to see if we can get 2,000 subs before Christmas time. And yeah, that's the goal, and we'll see if we can get there. And as always, see you in the next week for the Fishing Report. Peace out.